concerns. Give us a call or text us at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
All this and more right here on Hello Houston, right after the news from NPR and News 88.7.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The U.S. Senate is holding a marathon voting session this hour on President Trump's sweeping domestic legislation. NPR's Deirdre Walsh says it's really a tax bill.
It makes the tax cuts enacted in 2017 in President Trump's first term permanent. It adds some temporary tax breaks like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. It also boosts spending for border enforcement, for the military. It increases the debt ceiling by $5 trillion to avoid a default later this summer. But to offset all of those tax breaks, the legislation includes significant spending cuts.
NPR's Deirdre Walsh on spending cuts, the bulk of which, almost $1 trillion worth, come from changes to Medicaid. Congress's nonpartisan scorekeeper said yesterday this version of the bill adds $3.3 trillion to the deficit over the next decade, and nearly 12 million low-income Americans could lose their Medicaid coverage. President Trump has called on Israel and Hamas to make a deal to release hostages from Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel's war with Iran has led to new opportunities to free hostages. NPR's Daniel Estrin reports from Tel Aviv. Israel is also seeking a diplomatic deal with Syria.
Prime Minister Netanyahu's close advisor Ron Dermer is expected to meet U.S. officials in Washington to advance a potential deal for ties between Israel and Syria. That's according to a person briefed on the matter, not authorized to speak publicly. The prime minister's own corruption trial was postponed this week after Israeli intelligence chiefs convinced the judges that Netanyahu was busy with important diplomatic and security issues. Israeli media reported it was related to Syria. Also, Israel's military chief of staff met with top government officials Sunday to discuss the future of the Gaza war. The person briefed on the matter said Israel's military estimates troops need 2 more weeks to complete their objectives in Gaza. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
Jury deliberations are underway in New York in Sean Diddy Combs' trial. NPR's Isabella Gomez Sarmiento reports the hip-hop mogul has pleaded not guilty to charges of sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy.
For nearly 7 weeks, federal prosecutors laid out testimony and evidence to try to prove Combs is guilty of the crimes he's charged with. They accuse him of running a criminal enterprise that facilitated and concealed sex crimes for over a decade. Combs' defense lawyers deny these accusations. They say Combs was involved in consensual relationships that were totally separate from his many companies. If convicted on all counts, Combs could spend the remainder of his life in prison. Isabella Gomez Sarmiento, NPR News.
U.S. stocks trading higher this hour with the Dow Jones Industrial Average up nearly 160 points. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. A 19-year-old man has died near the Woodlands after he tried to retrieve a basketball from a pond. The incident happened last night at Wentwoods Park in the village of Creekside Park. Rescue crews with the Woodlands Fire Department used side-scanning sonar and rescue boats to retrieve his body. An investigation into the man's death is ongoing. When natural disasters strike, like hurricanes or major floods, how you plan ahead for medical emergencies for your children can result in a matter of life or death. News 88.7's Gabrielle Dawkins has more from one of Houston's leading experts at Texas Children's Hospital.
Tornadoes, hurricanes, and floods. Natural disasters can strike at any moment.
Children oftentimes are displaced during these events. They have to leave their home, they have to evacuate, they go to a neighbor's home, they go to a family friend's home or a family member's home.
Dr. Brent Cazzini, Medical Director of Emergency Management at Texas Children's Hospital, says having discussions with your pediatrician now to request a surplus of medication will be pivotal.
And a lot of times what we'll see is that their chronic medical conditions, whether that's their asthma or their seizure disorder, those things tend to be exacerbated. And that's likely due to the fact that maybe their medication did not go with them as they evacuated.
I'm Gabrielle Dawkins, News 88.7.
In sports, the Astros hit the road to Denver to face the Rockies tomorrow night. Houston leads the AL West by 6.5 games, and they're in second place overall in the American League, 2 back of Detroit. Taking a look at weather, Saharan dust in the region bringing a higher chance for rain. Today, a 30% chance for afternoon showers and thunderstorms, otherwise hazy, mostly sunny, a high of 93, feeling more like 101. Right now, partly cloudy, 86 degrees on the UH campus. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher is committed to helping clients stay on track to reach their financial goals and enjoy a comfortable retirement. FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Happy Monday.
Hello,
Thanks for
hello.
joining us.
How was your weekend?
It was great. It was very relaxing. Friday night, I was so nervous that Friday I had said I was going to my friend's 40th surprise birthday party.
Yeah, the one you ruined.
Thank goodness. I have some friends that listen. I don't hold it against them. I have some friends that don't. They didn't hear it, so it was fine. We were fine. We are going to be fine, Houston. But we hope everybody had a great weekend. We are back. Ernie is still out.
Yeah, he's out all week.
He's out all week. We as well will be out for 4th of July. But
Yep.
yeah.
Starting Wednesday, I think.
Starting Wednesday. Okay, but Frank, I need to know what's happening with the Saharan dust.
Well, those storms yesterday cleared a lot of it for us. I mean,
okay.
Barry formed over the weekend.
Yeah.
So A storm's gone, B storm's gone. The quick little storms.
Yeah.
So we're to the C storm. I think that's Chantal. And
Chantal. What a name.
We might, we had a Chantal hit here in 1989.
Did not know that.
It was a tropical storm in July of 1989. So that might form a little bit toward the end of the week over near Florida. Maybe. American model says, yeah. European model says no.
Now, when we're talking about Saharan dust, are we going to actually see dust?
No.
Like, is it going to make it cloudy?
It can make it hazy.
Hazy,
If you get enough of it.
Sure.
You can almost see sort of this orangey tinge up in the atmosphere. So I've seen that before, but I would say 9 out of 10 times that we have these dust issues, you don't even see it. It's way up there. It's very thin.
So I know
we know it's there because we can see it on satellite.
Yeah.
But with the naked eye, you really don't see much. Now, if you have any kind of respiratory issues, that may be affected. So
you'll start feeling it and things like that.
So wear a mask. If you have a
if you
leftover
have
mask
to.
from COVID, wear a mask.
You can still find masks around at HEB and things like that.
Sure.
But again, we want to thank you for joining us today, whether that is you're listening in your car or you're watching us on YouTube. We have our friends. I know we had friends on YouTube asking about Ernie. Again, Ernie will be back. He's on vacation. A very well-deserved vacation after putting up with us.
Yeah.
So
hopefully he's getting the stress out of his life.
Yes, but again, you can go to youtube.com/Houston Public Media to catch us there, as well as we love the interaction. We love hearing your perspective. That's what makes Hello Houston us, right? And so you can send us an email at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also call us at 713-440-8870. Frank, what do we have coming up this hour?
I've got the weather, which we'll talk about. And it looks like this is going to be one of those weeks with 20 to 30% chance every afternoon and hot. And then on 4th of July, we should get away with a fairly dry 4th of July.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, we have a holiday weekend coming up. I know everybody's checking it.
I think so far so good on that. But anyway, we'll keep an eye on that. The director of research at the Kinder Institute is Daniel Potter, and he's going to talk to us about what residents really think about living in the city of Houston.
Interesting. And we know we have thoughts.
Well, the answer may be not what you expect. So, yes, we want to definitely hear from everyone on this. 713-440-8870.
And getting right into our topics, a frightening midair scare halted the Saturday night show of Beyonce's Cowboy Carter tour. right here in Houston. After her airborne car tilted and stopped as she floated above the crowd, the technical mishap happened as she was lifted from the stage while sitting in the velvet-wrapped red Cadillac and performed her single 16 Carriages. There are tons of videos going viral right now of the pop star sitting on the car that looks like it's going to tip her out into the crowd. The suspended car was meant to carry her across the arena so that fans could get an up-close and personal look while a video montage of her career played out on the massive screen that lit up NRG Stadium. Fortunately, the Queen Bee was lowered down safely and appeared back on stage swiftly. She continued to sing and perform. She told the local crowd, "I know if I fall, y'all will catch me." Beyonce's company, Parkwood Entertainment, did release a statement late last night about the incident. It said the moment was due to a technical mishap. We want to hear from you. Have you been to a concert that had a major technical mishap? And if so, what are your thoughts on this? We know Beyonce's not the only one. Give us a call, 713-440-8870. And joining us now, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see we have our Houston Public Media colleague who was at the concert, Cece K. Cece.
Yes.
Talk to us. What happened?
Oh, my gosh.
I bet it was scary.
It was so scary. And I was just thinking the whole time, honestly, if this lady falls, I'm never going to a concert ever again.
Okay, let's set the stage because you had floor seats.
I had floor seats. So she was stage left. I was stage right. She started stage left. All of a sudden, we see the cameras go to the audience. And I'm like, nobody wants to look at that. And so the next thing you know, she's just sitting midair. She's still singing. She's holding on to the ropes. Like, you know, Beyonce does not stop singing for anything.
Right.
And then a minute and 30 seconds go by. It seemed like forever.
So
and she goes,
did you see the car tilt?
Oh, 100%.
So it was obvious something was going wrong.
Something was going wrong. And I figured, you know, it's Houston. Maybe they did the whole car slab thing. Because, you know, it's Houston.
That is very
And
Houston.
it was a new prop, maybe.
And for people that don't know what that is, explain what that is.
So a slab is like a low rider that they ride out here in Houston. It's lowered. It's got the really pointy rims, and they can tilt.
Yeah.
So, you know, we thought it was like a three-wheel motion type thing. No, it was turning sideways, and then she stopped. She goes, okay. Stop.
Yeah, I saw a video of where you can see her look at the camera.
Yes.
And then she's still singing and it's tilting, and you can see her holding her body in a certain position.
Yes.
And then you can hear her say, stop, stop.
Yeah. I think she was going to keep going if it would have straightened out or whatever, but she just couldn't take it. She was just like, oh, wait, stop.
So it was obvious.
She didn't look scared.
She didn't.
No, she didn't.
She didn't.
I bet y'all looked scared.
We were like screaming, get her down. But, you know, honestly, it was funny because the police and the security were over there before she even reached the ground on the other side because they were like, you know, they're not going to let her get touched or anything. But by the time I looked up, she was on the stage with a new dress on singing.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, that
So
is...
it was a crowd.
So we really just missed 16 kids.
I know there's a lot of video out there. Did everybody grab their camera and start videoing?
Oh, yeah. I sent you guys video and everything. I was like, oh, my gosh, this
And
is going to be
pictures.
huge. But, yeah, everybody had footage. I get home. My sisters in Las Vegas are like, oh, my gosh. I'm like, how did you guys see? They were like, it was live.
Yeah, this morning I saw, the New York Times covered it, CBS Morning covered it, and it happened right here. And we have CCK with us from Houston Public Media.
Yeah.
This is not the first time a major incident has happened. In 2015 at the Brit Awards, Madonna's cape got pulled down and she got flown off the stairs.
I remember that.
Pink has also flown off. She did acrobat.
I'm surprised Pink hasn't had a lot of issues, but her concerts usually go off without a hitch.
Yeah.
And they're amazing.
And this is not...
She flies everywhere.
And this is not Beyonce's first either.
No.
Her hair got caught in a massive fan while performing in Montreal.
And she kept singing.
And she kept singing, and they came out and they did that. So do you think it was the right move for her to keep singing? Pause. Did it feel like it went off without a hitch, a minor little glitch, and that was it?
You know what? People love Beyonce so much that it really didn't matter. I think it didn't interrupt the concert or anything. When it happened, it was just like, just move on.
It's showbiz, baby.
Yeah.
Well, they say when she got back on stage, she said, "I know if I fall, y'all will catch me."
I'm sure everybody would have been putting their arms out to catch.
How charming, right? She's in her hometown. She's here.
Yeah.
If you didn't like, even if you don't like Beyonce, you like her now because you're like, yes, I feel it. I see it.
Yeah.
Houston's got you.
And you can go to more concerts now because she's
That's
okay.
right. See,
I'm
this
telling
isn't
you, it would have been over with for me. I wouldn't have been able to survive that.
How high up was she?
She was up really, really high. You've been in the stadium before? So, she was up to the top, like the nosebleed seats. She was very high.
Yeah.
So she was,
40 feet, 40, 50 feet?
I want to say almost 100 feet in the air.
That high.
I don't know for sure. I mean, but it was pretty high.
Wow.
So.
Well, thank you for joining us this morning on Hello Houston. We got you guys the latest. I mean, we have in-person reaction right now.
Yes, 100%.
Cece Gay is one of our Houston Public Media colleagues. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good to be here.
All's well that ends well, right?
That's right. So thankfully she was okay and it all was okay. Frank, what else is going on this week?
You know what? This is interesting. Governor Greg Abbott signed a bill last week that allows agencies to develop remote work policies under state supervision. Mm-hmm. You'll remember he called everybody back to work.
Yes.
So all the state employees had to go back to work.
Which we work on the U of H campus.
Yep.
We experienced it ourselves.
But the problem with that was a lot of people had already altered their life to have remote work at home, like babysitters or child care, elderly care, whatever it was. They'd altered that. And then when they did come back to work, there wasn't enough office space in some cases, or enough parking spaces for their cars. So it wasn't just, let's all go back to work, because things had changed in the 2 or 3 years that this had gone on. So House Bill 5196 came in response to that executive action earlier this year, where he said, come back in March. He ordered all the state agencies to abandon the telework policies. And now, obviously, he has rethunked that, clearly. So state employees who'd been dependent on remote work argued the order would upend their lives, and I'm sure it did for a lot of people. So the Texas State Employees Union lobbied in favor of HB 5196, pointing to the state's own study that found productivity did not dip amid an increase in remote work. And it helped reduce turnover at state agencies, because I'm sure it was considered sort of a perk to work from home. So this law goes into effect September 1. So it's interesting. I don't know what this means in terms of who can go back to remote. I guess it's going to have to be more supervised. But obviously his concern was you're remotely working, you're not really working. That was his concern.
Right. And we want to know your thoughts. Give us a call. What are your thoughts on working from home? Is it efficient or is it not? Call us now, 713-440-8870. I think this is great because we have multiple generations in the workforce now, from baby boomers, Generation X. We have millennials. Now we have this new batch of Gen Zers that are coming up. And we know that there are major differences in general worldviews and what different generations are motivated by and what they want out of employers. Mm-hmm. And so I think that is a smart move of Governor Abbott. And obviously everybody agreed with him. Our legislators agreed with him, and that we have to stay dynamic. We have to be able to pivot with the times. We have to, obviously, if it's not affecting productivity, we need to meet people where they're at. Times have changed. And, I'm a millennial. We know that I really millennials tend to like that their managers get to know them personally. We don't love super direct feedback. We want flexibility.
I do wonder if work from home doesn't take away from the social aspect of having a job. You have work friends and lunches together, and you have little parties together. So I think the workforce is more dynamic and
100%.
probably closer when you actually work from work.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you have to be practical, and some people's lives are different because they have to take care of parents or take care of children or take care of each other or whatever it is, But if you're willing to be flexible, and on this the governor is, and I commend him for it.
I agree, and it's also one of those things where you can find a happy medium, right?
I think compromise is the key.
It's definitely compromise is key. I think that they came together and they said, you know what? I do agree that there is something very special about going into the office. I've got to say, I love having flexibility as a working mom, having autonomy over my work schedule, because it allows me to, one, sometimes I like coming into the office and having my cup of coffee without my kids.
Well, I mean, and a British computer guy on YouTube,
Yes.
is saying that it depends on the industry, but some work lends itself to work from home. But some people need people-to-people interaction.
Yep.
So everyone's situation is different, says the truth.
And the dark one says, try building an automobile remotely. Well, definitely there are certain industries that it allows it to. But again, we want to hear from you. You can send us a text or you can give us a call at 713-440-8870. Moving right along, President Donald Trump said in an interview on Fox News that the administration is working to develop a temporary pass for immigrants who work in certain industries, which would mark the latest shift in the administration's approach to immigration enforcement for farm workers. We're working on it right now. We're going to work it so that some kind of a temporary pass where people pay taxes, where the farmer can have a little control as opposed to you walk in and take everybody away. Trump said in an interview on Fox News Sunday Morning Futures. The president referenced authorities going to farms and taking away people that have been working there for 15 and 20 years who are good, who possibly came in correctly. What are your thoughts about Trump giving immigration exemptions to certain industries? Now is the time to call, 713-440-8870.
Oh, this makes me laugh because what's happened is all these red states that support Trump, they have working farms, and they need people to work them. Mm-hmm. And so Trump had to pick his poison here. What are you going to do? You're going to go with enforcing your deportation orders, or are you going to make these farm people happy because they're not going to vote for you next time at the midterms? Are going to be a real problem for Republicans if all of these states with farms don't have any workers, and they're losing billions because of it. And you that was a quote you read.
Yes.
That were taking away people that had been working there for 15 and 20 years who are good, who possibly came in incorrectly. What? I mean, he just won't tell it like it is.
I think that's the point, right? Is that there are a lot of good people that come to this country that however they came, they are here to work. They are here to help build up this country through their work that a lot of people don't want to do always, in some cases. And so the rolling back of this feels a little bit light. It's kind of like, okay, we knew this was going to happen. We saw that this was going to happen.
Well, you show me a single house in Houston that hasn't been built by a person from another country.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the way our economy is here, at least in Houston.
Yeah.
I mean, we count on these workers to do and there are a lot of great workers that come from other countries that bring skill sets that are amazing, and they're to be respected for that. And I'm sure that it's tough on farmers when they've been counting on these people. And let's face it, too, golf courses like Trump owns also have workers.
Hospitality, the industry's been hit hard. A lot of small businesses have been hit hard. And the other part of it is there are a lot of people that come here. I know some friends of mine, or I've gotten to know other parents at my daughter's school, that they are here. They came here the right way, but they are here, and they are, here. And they were doctors in Venezuela, or they were, one was a judge in another country, and now they're here and they're looking for whatever they can get. And so you see that and you're like, wow. But again, we want to hear from you. It's not about us. It's about you. Give us a call, 713-440-8870. We do have a call about our other topic about working from home and remote work from Mark from Cyprus. Mark, what's on your mind?
Yeah, thank you for taking my comment. So basically, I think it's really a case of productivity and focusing on productivity. So we're beginning to move away from managing people in the office necessarily. I work in operational efficiency, so it needs to be a move more so to a hybrid type model. And the truth is, happier workers are going to have a higher level of productivity. Now, not every industry is going to benefit from 100% remote work, like an automobile industry. But companies that are going to get the best workers are going to need to lean into technology where they can offer those employees more flexibility. You make them happier, and they're going to deliver even better at work.
Yeah, I know a lot of the oil companies for a long while, had 4-day work weeks, 10 hours a day. And that's how they got 40 hours. So basically everyone had Friday off. And then they went to every other Friday off, and then they took it away. Well, Mark, do you have any opinion on that?
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the great perks of working in oil and gas. And I have worked in oil and gas in Houston. And I think if you look at some of the major tech companies like the Googles and the Facebooks and so on, I think they are also finding that it's going to have to be a happy medium, probably a 3-day in the office type scenario. For the best workers who seek that flexibility, they're going to go to the companies that offer that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked great for oil and gas.
Yep.
And it works great once you're able to measure and manage the productivity of the workers, not necessarily leaning over their shoulder, but focusing more on the output as opposed to how many hours you're sitting down at your desk.
All right. Thanks, Mark, for
Thanks,
calling. You
Mark.
sound like a real pro there. I appreciate that. Today's National Meteor Watch Day. I know. We need a national meteorologist or watch the meteorologist day. Then we'd be right on top of things.
Coming up on Hello Houston, Director of Research at the Kinder Institute, Daniel Potter, will tell us what residents really think about living in the city of Houston. And we want to know what you think. Give us a call, 713-440-8870. This is News 88.7.
Houston Matters is your essential daily guide to the people, places, issues, and ideas that define Greater Houston.
Vulnerable households that have less of a means to recover from a flood, have less money to do it, are concentrated in the highest flood risk neighborhoods.
There's never going to be a perfect moment to come out or reveal something about yourself. There's never going to be a perfect moment to call somebody you haven't spoken to in years. Don't wait for all the stars to align.
I'm Craig Cohen. Join us for the next Houston Matters, weekday mornings at 9 here on News 88.7.
What you hear on this station, every report, every interview, every update, is only here because someone like you gave.
80% of Houston Public Media's funding comes from Houstonians like you. Our newsroom runs on support from you, our community.
You have the right to know what's going on, and you have the power to make sure others do too.
Join the community right now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
President Trump says he's bringing religion back to the country. We continue our If You Can Keep It series by assessing the boundaries of the separation between church and state. And we sit down with former CIA analyst and current Democratic Senator Alyssa Slotkin to talk Iran, immigration, and the future of the Democratic Party. That's all next time on 1A.
You can listen to 1A. That's coming up this afternoon at 2 o'clock.
Houston Public Media is a service of the University of Houston and is supported with your gifts to the Houston Public Media Foundation. More information available online at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate. Support comes from the School of Science and Technology, a public charter school providing academic development through college preparatory and STEM-based learning models. Grades pre-K through 12, enrollment open now. Details at sstschools.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Celestia Sherman and Frank Billingsley.
Today we're diving into a revealing look at what Houstonians really think about living in the Bayou City and why nearly half say they've thought about leaving at some point. That's just one of the standout findings from the 2025 Kinder Houston Area Survey released by Rice University's Kinder Institute for Urban Research. It's the most comprehensive survey in the study's 44-year history, capturing voices from across Harris, Fort Bend, and Montgomery counties, home to nearly 1 in 5 Texans. What do the results tell us about life in Greater Houston, from economic divides to the region's celebrated diversity? And how do we reconcile the fact that most residents say they're doing okay, yet mainly feel stuck, citing affordability, safety, and infrastructure as pressing concerns? Joining us to break it all down is Daniel Potter, Director of Research at the Kinder Institute. Daniel, welcome back to Hello Houston.
Thank you for having me.
I mean, this seems like quite a comprehensive study you did. And I think obviously we hear that conversation constantly coming up. Obviously, Houston has a lot of natural disasters that hit us from all areas.
Mm-hmm.
We always, on Houston Matters, they have a whole segment called Houston Pet Peeves. So when you did this, what were y'all really looking for? I mean, a pulse check on the city?
Yeah, so this is one of those studies that we have been doing for an amazing 44 consecutive years. And so by having that kind of longitudinal look, it gives us an opportunity to understand where we've been, where we are, and hopefully also that idea of where are we going. And so with this year's report, one of the data points that has been sort of unique and interesting about the Houston area is when you compare us against other major metropolitan areas in the country. So here, think about your LAs, your Chicagos, your New Yorks. We are growing leaps and bounds faster than they are. In fact, we are growing faster than any of the other top 10 largest metro areas in the nation, with the exception of Dallas. We're neck and neck with them. But moving past that point, we are growing.
Why?
And so that was the question. That was ultimately what we wanted to get at, was what is going on here that's pulling people in, keeping people grounded, rooted here, and allowing for this city to add 1.5 million people over the last 15 years.
And how did you go about with collecting this data?
So fortunately for us, we're able to leverage data coming out of the Census Bureau to understand some of the population dynamics that are taking place in this area. But with that knowledge coming out of that census data, we're then able to reach out to people with surveys from all of these different groups to understand what their own experiences, circumstances, conditions, values, and preferences happen to be. So we're not just looking at the census data, but rather using that as a backdrop to understand what's going on here in Houston.
Any idea how many people you looked at?
So we ended up hearing from almost 10,000 people on this most recent survey. It is the largest administration of the Kinder Houston area survey we have ever done. And it was the first time since 2018 that we've included Fort Bend and Montgomery County as well.
Could it be that people are also just moving here because we have space?
So one of the things that we saw from people as to, in terms of what brings them to the areas, it is jobs, it is family, and it is the cost of living. And I would say that space sort of is part of that equation, in that we've got the jobs that are moving in here. We've got that opportunity to own a home where you're not having to throw $750,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment, right? You can still get into reasonably affordable housing. Now, we want to recognize and acknowledge we have absolutely become a more expensive place to live over the last 15 years as well. Median cost of housing back in 2010 was $165,000. It's up north of $330,000 more recently.
I would think that the fact that we don't have a state income tax is a big draw.
So that is an attractive thing for certain residents that are coming in as well. And again, that just goes back to that cost of living piece, is that people feel like they're getting a good deal living in Houston.
Well, before we get to why people don't like Houston, let's talk more about why people do like
Absolutely.
Houston. So what are the positives that have come out of this survey?
Yeah, so we asked people point blank, what's the thing you like most about the Houston area? And we gave them an open text box to let them tell us what they thought. Number one answer, diversity.
Interesting.
And that's their word, not ours. It was this appreciation for all of the different cultures, communities, the different people that are melting and melding together in this space that we know here as Houston. And that was something that people appreciated. That was the number one response. Another one of the big responses we got from people was also local community and just that local flavor that people have. So both an appreciation for the diversity that is Houston, as well as that appreciation for their sort of local context. Beyond that, we talk about economic opportunities, and we also can talk about the activities. People love the concerts, the sporting events. They also enjoy that local community theater and live music down the street type situations. And we would, of course, be remiss to not mention the food.
The food.
I would have thought the Med Center would be a big player, and the fact that we have 2 really good airports and that we're right in the middle of the world. Houston, you can get anywhere.
3 hours away from everywhere.
Yeah, from everywhere. So, okay, do we have to talk about the negatives?
Well, I was going to say, we do have a comment right now, and we are talking with Daniel Potter, the Director of Research at the Kinder Institute, about a massive survey that they've been doing, the 2025 Kinder Houston Area Survey. You can join the conversation at 713-440-8870. Now, we did have a question that says, Daniel, I know you are researching what is making people want to move and stay in Houston, but what do you know about the number one reason that makes people want to leave Houston?
So when we think about leaving the Houston area, we can think of this as push and pull factors. So the push factors are going to be those things about the Houston area that people are not liking, and so it's pushing them to leave. The pull factors are sort of those things that exist elsewhere that are pulling you out of the Houston area. And so we've asked questions about number one biggest problem facing the Houston area, and it's the things we would sort of appreciate and recognize: crime and safety, infrastructure, public safety. Sorry, that's the crime and safety one. Talking about traffic as another one, the economy, cost of housing. These are things that we know people see as challenges for the Houston area. But when we asked them what was the reason, so are you thinking about leaving? About 40% of residents said, yeah, I've considered moving out of the Houston area. And we said, okay, why? What was the thing? Number one reason given was new people, new places, new opportunities. Yeah. So it was recognizing there's a world beyond Houston. And many residents would, and again, it was one of those open-ended responses. So people are writing things like, I've only ever lived here. And I know that there are other places, communities, and cultures that are out there. Why not go experience them? People would talk about, I'm retiring, and so I don't have to be here, and I'm ready to go see what's it like in the mountains, what's it like in, other places. And again, so for us, there was this sort of, yes, it is telling that about 40% of residents are saying, yeah, I've thought about getting out of here. But when you're asking why, it's not something we're doing per se, but just an acknowledgement.
Grass is greener.
There's a grass. Well, so we looked at economic opportunities as a whole separate other category, and that was one of the other reasons as well. This was sort of just an appreciation and a curiosity for the world around them.
Speaking of that, did they divide it into whether they wanted to stay in the United States, or more people saying, Mexico or Canada or Europe? Or a lot of people say Portugal because it's kind of the way to get into the European Union.
Gotcha.
Kind of cheaply,
Gotcha. When we were, so if anybody named a location, it was typically mountains. And so we had a lot of people talking about Colorado.
Cool. They want cool weather.
I reading between the lines, I would agree with that statement.
Colorado's expensive, but we do have a call on the line. We have a call from Joseph from Tomball. Joseph, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment for Daniel?
Good morning to all of you. Well, the cost of living is very important. An example, I moved from New York to Houston 5 years ago, and the rent was killing me over there. I couldn't buy a house because it was too expensive. But actually, tomorrow, I am moving to a luxury apartment. And listen to this, luxury. It has 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. Everything is brand new for $1,700. When in New York, I was paying for 2-bedroom, old, super old apartment for $3,800. So
wow.
All my family, whoever come visit me, they'd be like, oh, my God, I'm driving my own truck here. I don't have to push nobody on the train. And although in the house here, even if you think about it, I do appliances. I go house to house. And a lot of people are selling their houses in Florida and California. They sell one house over there, they buy 2 houses here. They rent one and they live in another one. So Houston is the place to whoever is listening to me. Hello, Houston.
Thanks,
great.
Joseph. We appreciate it. And congratulations on your new apartment.
Absolutely.
And so there's got to be a downside, or at least a little concern, of growing so quickly. If nothing else, we still do have flooding issues, and infrastructure is always going to be a challenge. Potholes out there, traffic is getting worse. What are the number one things that are going on with that kind of explosive population growth.
Yeah, and there is a growing appreciation that while Houston is already quite large in the region, and sort of a regional comment right there, there is an appreciation that we are at risk of sort of getting ahead of ourselves, that we don't have the infrastructure built out. We don't have the type of, and that infrastructure, think power grid, think roads, think drainage. There's also that concern that where, Houston, let's hop in our time machine, go back 1,000 years. It's a swampy space, marshes, and this is where water would just seep into the ground and run off. But you start paving that stuff over, and all of a sudden, places that maybe hadn't flooded previously because they were benefiting from those open fields and marshy type areas, that is no longer the case. And so flooding starts popping up in different areas. And so especially as we continue to develop spaces that were previously just open, you could sort of almost think of them as natural green infrastructure. As they go away, those put additional challenges.
All right, we have another call. This one's from Noah from Summerwood. Hi, Noah. What's on your mind?
Hey, good morning, folks.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I've lived in Houston my entire life. I've lived in several different neighborhoods. I actually lived on the UH campus during college, and I would say the biggest factor that would make me want to move away from Houston is the lack of public transit. Yep. I really hate car dependency, and when I lived on campus at U of H, I really appreciated the accessibility of the metro system, but since I've moved away, it's been kind of impossible to use the metro. I think if you live within the 610 loop, it's sort of doable, but once you leave, it's borderline impossible. And I visited other cities like Chicago with much better transit, and it really is like night and day.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. He has a very good point. I envy the good subway systems in the metro of Washington, D.C., places like that. We don't have that. We're not going to have that. We're never going to have that. The metro rail we have is a joke in so many ways. People don't even go on it. In some cases around the Galleria, they never even get on that train. So there is the lack of good transit. We've had discussions about bike lanes. We lack a walkable, enjoyable neighborhoods is a real miss in Houston.
So when we think about things like public transportation, I mean, traffic was the number one biggest problem facing Fort Bend and Montgomery County residents. So this is absolutely something that people are calling out and calling attention to.
So you said facing which residents?
This is going to be Fort Bend and Montgomery.
And now we've had multiple local leaders who have talked about that. We have a large influx of Montgomery County residents and Fort Bend County residents coming into Houston. Daniel, when we are looking at this survey, talk to us about that public transit type of situation. What do people want?
And I think that's the important question is when we can look at the numbers, we can look at the layout, we can understand that there are limitations to a public transportation system sort of working that way it may work in other cities, but a lot of that also is based on what is currently. It's not necessarily taken into consideration how you could potentially plan for a public transportation system to work, right? And so I think as you have more and increasingly this call for some sort of passive transportation that will help people move around the area, whether that is light rail, whether that is just a more functional rapid bus line that doesn't just hit up the Galveston, Sharpstown area and downtown, but rather is sort of far-reaching and helping to connect the entire area. There is going to be this tension between what is a limited amount of people using public transportation, though we shouldn't downplay the number of folks that rely on public transportation for their day-to-day commute, but also what could be, right? And I think that's the thing that sometimes there's a tension around.
So when we are looking at planning, what is it about Houston? Because we do have a comment that says, come to the railroad capital of the world, Chicago. So when you do go to other cities and they're able to get it together, what is it about Houston that public transportation, yes, there are a large number of people that do rely on it, but the majority of people use their own cars. So what is it? Is it lack of planning within our city? Was this supposed to have happened 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, and now we're seeing the effects of that? And what needs to happen moving forward if we do want to start implementing more public transportations?
So we can absolutely look back in time to where you see certain neighborhoods had public transportation in them. They had rail lines that had subsequently been ripped out of them, right? And so there's sort of been this interesting step forward, step backwards, and then trying to get forward again type thing. I think when we are looking at like what are some of the challenges, in one word, it's densification, right? It's that when you think about areas, Chicago, New York, DC. These are areas that within a quarter mile of a station, you are oftentimes having a whole bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Houston area, yes, you can find pockets of very dense populations, but really once you get outside of that, it's very difficult to find that kind of population density. And so it makes it difficult to pitch the idea of putting in some sort of station or rail line, because the argument would be made there is not a built-in community around it that would leverage it, that would benefit from it. And again, for me, that's sort of an acknowledgement of, yes, that's what is. We also want to focus on what could be. And then I think the other challenge is that, having lived in DC for a second myself, like I was willing to walk the half mile, 3/4 mile to get to that station. And in DC, sometimes in the summer, that's a little bit of a hike, but most of the year, that's just a pleasant stroll, maybe even something that requires a coat.
Right.
In Houston, that's going to make you shrivel up and, get quite sweaty in that short period of time.
Exactly. And again, we invite you to the conversation, 713-440-8870.
Well, so we take this Kinder Institute data that you have. We talked about what to do as far as transit is concerned. What other lessons has this taught you?
Well, I think one of the big things that we took away from this year's report had to do with economic inequality. Inequality, yes.
Mm-hmm.
That there are very different experiences happening in Houston based on how much you were earning. There are different experiences in terms of job opportunities that are out there. There are different experiences in terms of quality of life. There are different experiences in terms of financial security. What I earn shapes my experience here in Houston.
And that's everywhere.
I was about to say that is arguably not necessarily some indictment on Houston per se, but that is perhaps an indictment on the system more broadly. And just acknowledging here in the Houston area those differences that exist where, if you make less than $25,000 a year, 70% of those residents said that they do not have $400 to cover an unexpected expense. Compare that to folks making over $100,000, it's less than 1 in 10 don't have that money sitting around. And so these very different levels of financial vulnerability there. What's very interesting about this was that when we were asking folks, well, what do you want to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
That was where things really got interesting this year. Because again, first time we've heard from Montgomery and Fort Bend County on these things in over a decade. And so we were asking point blank, do you feel like the government should do more to close the gap between the rich and the poor? 80% agreed with that statement. 80% in Fort Bend, 80% in Harris County, 70% in Montgomery County. When you
Wow. No, wow. That's all I got to say. We have to wrap it up.
Yeah.
We do have a call. Antoine is on the line from 3rd Ward. Anthony, welcome to Hello Houston. What are your thoughts or comments on this?
Thank you so much for welcoming me. So I'm from 3rd Ward. Donald Trump is, I don't know, I can't fathom. I don't know the words for him. But how can a former president, be elected again that has been impeached?
Interesting question. I think that's one of those things where we will have to get back to you on that one, Anthony. Right now, we are talking with Daniel Potter, the Director of Research at the Kinder Institute, about Houston specifically. But I think that's a great question, Anthony, and we will try to get an answer for you right here on Hello Houston. Again, we invite everybody to the conversation and to the table at 713-440-8870. And
almost time to go bat crazy.
And speaking of Houston, and something that people don't think about Houston, I think we think of Austin oftentimes, but bats.
Bats.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So one thing that you think people should know about this study before we let you go, Daniel?
That this is something that is the longest running study of any major metropolitan area in the country. And we've got the 45th annual one being planned as we speak for next year. And so as folks are tuning in to learn about what's going on in this great area of ours, keep following, keep looking out, more information to come.
Nice.
Daniel Potter is the Director of Research at the Kinder Institute. Daniel, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Coming up, we talk about the importance of bats in our local ecosystem. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
Houston Public Media brings to you PBS World, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on TV 8.6. Experience the personal connection behind the headlines with programming devoted to telling stories that humanize complex issues. PBS World helps us understand the movements, conflicts, and cultures that connect us all. PBS World on TV 8.6 and online at houstonpublicmedia.org.
Recycling can feel like a lost cause, but one college student started a grassroots efforts to turn beer bottles into sand for eroding beaches.
We have some music bumping and some people are sorting, there's one person crushing, and the rest of us are hand sifting the material.
Now you can come up with creative ideas by taking a second look. Double Takes. That's next time on the TED Radio Hour.
You can hear that tomorrow night at 9 o'clock.
The big picture is we have a president who's quite happy with the Supreme Court. So we see a kind of close relationship between the president and the Supreme Court, with the president claiming unprecedented powers for himself and the court not only not standing in his way, but generally opening the door.
I'm Rachel Abrams. That's Today on the Daily from the New York Times.
It's on tonight at 7 o'clock.
It can be hard to stay informed about what's happening in our city, our state, and across the country. That's why Houston Public Media makes it easier.
Everything you hear on News 88.7 is powered by you, not advertisers. 80% of our funding comes from our Houston community.
That's what makes public media different. It's community funded and always here for you when you need it.
Join that community now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
And now back to Hello Houston. To get your comment in on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Celestia Sherman and Frank Billingsley.
All right, we are now the Bat Channel. How about that? You may not think highly of bats. You might just be scared of bats. They play a very important role in our ecosystem. They help save Texas farmers billions of dollars in pest control, fertilizer, and pollination services every year. And they also contribute millions of dollars toward ecotourism, as well as play, get this, a very important role in the United States tequila industry.
Interesting.
I can't wait to hear.
I heard tequila.
I know. Joining us now to tell us more about the importance of bats is Andrea Rummel, Assistant Professor of BioSciences at Rice. Andrea, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here to talk about bats.
I know.
I'm definitely a bat stan.
Let's talk about bats and tequila. Tell us how what role do bats play in tequila?
If you like tequila, bats are super critical for the production of tequila because they pollinate the agave plants that are then harvested to make the tequila.
Wow.
So bats are really important to the process. They are important for propagating healthy agave plants. So actually, they're more important for mezcal production because mezcal is
that's smoky
produced
tequila.
from plants that are farmed a little differently. Yeah. So if you ever enjoy a margarita, if you like to have a little taste of mezcal, you can thank bats for that for sure.
Now, often when we look, Andrea, when we think of bats in Texas, though, when we're thinking about bats in Texas, we think of Austin because Austin kind of has become this very known place for bats. But right here in Houston, you can go.
Allen Parkway has a great bat
Allen
show
Parkway.
every night.
Yeah. Talk to us about that. What we know about the bats that live under the bridges here in Houston.
Yeah, you're right that Austin is kind of center stage in Texas for bats, but Houston has a population of bats that numbers in the millions. And you're right that Allen Parkway, that Waugh Drive Bridge across Buffalo Bayou, is like the epicenter of bat life in Houston. And the bats that live there are the same kind that live in Austin. They're Mexican free-tailed bats, and they're bats that love to live together. They're super social. They roost in these enormous colonies, which is why we get the really big bridge colonies in Austin and Houston and elsewhere in the state. And frankly, they're very cute, and they perform. Opinions differ, but I would say bats are very cute.
Oh, Dracula gives bats a bad name. That's what it is. Dracula messed them up. I want to know, what do bats eat?
Well, there's lots of bats around the world, and they have pretty varied diets. But the bats that we have here are primarily insect eaters. So if you see a bat in Houston, you can be pretty sure that it's eating mosquitoes for you. It's eating moths. It's eating. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I love their mosquito eaters. We need those. We need bats to eat those mosquitoes.
I mean, a bat can eat its body weight in bugs in a night or more. And so if you think about, bats aren't very big, but if you've got millions of bats flying around, they are taking a lot of bugs out of the air for us. So, if you see a bat in your neighborhood, thank it, because that means fewer mosquitoes and fewer creepy crawlies flying around.
And you said there are 11 species of bats that live in Houston, and they live all over, the area. I found this absolutely fascinating, that bats are more closely related to humans than rodents. Is that real? Is that factual? I did a report on it a few years ago as a news reporter here at Houston Public Media, and I remember being like, wow. I mean, I know they're a very diverse group of mammals. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about that the actual mammal and how that works in our ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, you're making me think hard about where bats are in the tree of life, but they are not closely related to rodents, that's for sure. One of the interesting things about bats is that we don't really know where they come from evolutionarily. Their position in the tree of life is a little bit uncertain. And to my memory, as of right now, with our kind of available knowledge, they're the sister group to a group of mammals that contains whales and elephants and animals that you wouldn't expect are closely related to bats at all. So just from an evolutionary standpoint, yes, it's definitely possible that bats are more closely related to people than to rodents. But really, we know less than we wish we did about how bats relate to other animals and how bats kind of arrived on the scene 50 million years ago.
So is there any real threat? There's a threat to everything, it seems like. What's the threat to bats?
That's a great question, because the threats are many and pretty large in this day and age. So one of the biggest threats to bats is something called white nose syndrome, which is a disease that's transmitted by a fungus. And it's been decimating populations of bats in the US for about 2 decades. So it was introduced from Europe, this fungal infection, and it's killed off bat population. Sometimes 90% of bats, especially on the East Coast, have been killed by white nose syndrome. So
what do we do?
Sadly, it's been spreading across the U.S.
Anything to do to fight it?
Challenging. So there's been a lot of die-off of bats and a huge effort by scientists and conservation biologists to combat it, with some promising studies over the last couple of years. But really, up to now, the strategy has been to help populations rebound where possible and to identify places where this fungus is present to try to prevent the spread of the fungus. So it's been tough for bats. We're lucky in Houston because the Mexican free-tailed bats that are most numerous here haven't really been hit by white nose. It spares some species and it hits some species very hard. So we've still got a really nice bat population in the eastern part of the state here.
Nice.
Now, every once in a while, I'll be sitting outside on my porch and I will see and hear bats around like 6 p.m. when the sun is starting to go down, or 7 p.m. What should people know? Should people be afraid? I mean, should I go inside? Should I be worried that a bat might bite me?
I know. What do we do? You don't want rabies, that's for sure.
I don't want rabies.
Yeah, rabies is a no-go for sure. But you shouldn't be afraid. If you see bats flying around outside, especially at dusk, or overnight, they're doing exactly what they are supposed to do. They're doing it where they're supposed to do it. They're, again, providing that ecosystem service to us by starting to feed as soon as the sun goes down, essentially. So they're eating all the insects that otherwise would be bothering us. But at the same time, bats are wild animals. And so, they can carry rabies. They're mammals. And so as long as they're away, as long as you're not having any contact with them, there should be no fear. But, if you see a bat up close, don't pick it up. If a bat's in your home, call a professional to have it removed. So, treat bats like the wild animals that they are.
Andrea Rummel is an assistant professor of bioscience at Rice University. Andrea, thank you for joining us today and telling us all about bats.
Thank you, guys.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll continue diving into the top stories of the day. Stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a workers' compensation provider striving to build trust with businesses across the state through dedicated services. More at texasmutual.com/TexansDeliver. Your NPR station, KUHF Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, we continue diving into today's top stories, including Houston ISD's compensation plan for the 2025-26 school year, which will use increased state funding to boost teacher pay. I'm Frank Billingsley.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. We'll also talk with Alfred Cervantes, the executive director of the Houston Film Commission, who will talk to us about the Texas film industry getting a major boost from Senate Bill 22 and more.
Plus, we'll hear how one company is striving to improve rural health care.
And we want to hear from you, so give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel. Just go to houstonpublicmedia.org and click the big orange banner.
Hello Houston continues right after the news from NPR and News 88.7.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The U.S. Senate is holding what's known as a vote-a-rama on President Trump's major tax cut and spending bill. Lawmakers taking up and voting on dozens of amendments. Republican Senate Majority Leader John Thune of South Dakota is presiding over a process in which the GOP can only afford to lose one more vote and still pass the bill.
Let's vote. This is good for America. This is good for the American people. It's good for working families. And it's been a long debate. I know people are weary. But at the end of the day, we want to get this done so that this country is safer and stronger and more prosperous, not only for today, but for future generations of Americans.
Senators Rand Paul and Tom Tillis, who announced he will not run for re-election, oppose the massive legislation of spending cuts and tax breaks projected to add trillions to the deficit over 10 years. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer and other Democrats are united against President Trump's bill.
Today, Senate Republicans have to decide: choose the American people or bow down to Donald Trump and his coterie of billionaires. Because this bill, as we have said for months, steals people's health care, jacks up their electricity bill, takes away their jobs, all to pay for tax breaks for billionaires.
The Senate's version of the bill cuts more than $1 trillion in health care funding, the bulk of it from Medicaid. The Congressional Budget Office estimates nearly 12 million more Americans will lose coverage in the next 10 years. North Idaho investigators are trying to determine a motive behind yesterday's deadly shooting in Coeur d'Alene. NPR's Kirk Sigler reports police say the suspect, who was found dead but has not been publicly identified, set a fire and shot at responding firefighters.
At Canfield Mountain here in the city of Coeur d'Alene, smoke is ominously hanging thick in the air, and you can smell it from a brush fire that was intentionally set to ambush dozens of wildland firefighters who raced to this park adjacent to a neighborhood. 2 firefighters were shot and killed and another critically injured, and the sheriff here says he's fighting for his life. One of the deceased firefighters was from the city fire department, the other from Kootenai County. The shelter-in-place order is lifted, but the few people out walking their dogs here say it's eerily quiet when it would normally be busy, and everyone is still on edge and shocked by the killings. Kirk Sigler, NPR News, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Jury deliberations have begun in Sean Diddy Combs' trial in New York. The hip-hop mogul has pleaded not guilty to sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy charges. U.S. stocks trading higher this hour. The Dow's up 174 points at 43,991. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. This just into News 88.7, Bianca Valerio has won the coin toss to determine who will represent Pasadena City Council District B. The race was tied at 272 votes for incumbent Valerio and challenger Bruce Lehman. We'll have more coverage of the end of the City Council race in Pasadena in later casts. Former Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg has been summoned to appear in court next month. Judge Josh Hill will determine if she violated a gag order in the capital murder case of 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungaray. Ogg will appear in court July 28th. Local animal shelters telling pet owners to prepare ahead of the 4th of July. News 88.7's Natalie Weber tells us there's an uptick in dogs who are scared away by fireworks.
On a rainy day at the bark shelter, most of the animals are surprisingly calm. That is, except for one dog. Veterinarians at animal shelters warn your dog might not be very calm during the 4th of July. For many shelters, the day after is their busiest time of the year. Brandon Dillashaw is the shelter manager for the Houston Humane Society.
Anytime fireworks are involved, there is an uptick in intake and strays that are found in the community. So, it definitely happens every year.
Local shelters and veterinarians encourage pet owners to microchip their animals and keep them inside during the holiday if possible. I'm Natalie Weber, News 88.7.
In sports, the Astros wing their way to Denver to face the Rockies tonight at 7:40. Houston continues to lead the AL West by 6.5 games. And your check of weather, a 30% chance for afternoon showers and thunderstorms today. Hazy skies, mostly sunny with a high of 93, feeling like 101. Right now, partly cloudy, 86 degrees on the UH campus.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance, working to help protect small businesses and the owners that run them, offering customizable coverages to salons, accounting firms, tradespeople, and more. Learn more at progressivecommercial.com.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
We're back, hour number 2.
That's right. Welcome back to the second hour of Hello Houston.
You know, we had a nice first hour.
We did.
If you saw us on youtube.com/Houston Public Media, or sent us a text or maybe an email, we were talking to Daniel Potter about the Kinder Institute. And basically 10,000 people in this survey, Houstonians, why you came to Houston, what keeps you here, why you might want to leave, just sort of an overview of the good and the bad and maybe the ugly, as Craig Cohen likes to say.
Yeah.
Is there any reason you would leave Houston, do you think?
Nope, I love Houston.
Yeah.
And, I think what's so interesting about this survey is that they've been doing it for 44 years. So they really are able to measure the pulse of Houston. And this year, for the first time, I don't actually know if it was for the first time, but this year's survey was Fort Bend County and Montgomery County.
I think it was the first time.
Were included.
Yeah.
And so they really are able to get a full grasp. So we talk about Houston, but there's so much more to Houston than just our
everybody
area.
finds their own little hood for sure.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. The number one, I guess, positive for Houston was its diversity, which is interesting. And all of the things that he talked about, whether good or bad, he didn't bring up political.
No.
And I think that, when we elect a mayor, we just tend to, or a county judge, we just tend to elect the person we think is best. in the city. That's what I've always gotten that impression.
Yeah.
It's never like, oh, I've got to vote for them because they're a Democrat or they're a Republican. It's like, this is who I think is going to be the best leader for the city or the county.
And I think you get that when you have such a diverse population. You're able to get so many different perspectives from both sides and in between and to the very right or to the very left. And so what ends up happening is you really end up with the best of the best because you're able to fizzle down to what really matters most. And again, you can join the conversation at 713-440-8870. We did receive quite a few texts. We received one text that said, "The heat. Everyone wants to move away from Houston in the summer and move here in the winter."
Where are you summering? Someone asked
Where
me
are you
that. Where are you summering? I'm like, right here at Houston, Texas. I don't have that kind of money.
Right. Another person sent us a text that said, "Mayor Turner at least tried, but the current mayor attacks people who cycle, and the Metro lead thinks buses are the only answer." You know, I will say
it's an issue.
We were in this waiting period right before we moved for my husband's work to another country. And so we moved in with my in-laws and we lived out in Katy for about 4 or 5 months. And during that time, my husband was commuting into downtown from Katy, which we know tons of people do. And he would take a bus. And it was fascinating because tons of people would take a bus. It was very efficient. It was very effective for commuters. And so I think that gets overlooked. For people that live in Houston, there are a lot of people that live out in different areas, Cypress or Katy, that just simply work downtown and they want to get in, they do all their stuff, and they want to get out.
Well, I've heard about Rail on Richmond for 30 years, and it still has not materialized at all. I had one guy that I knew that sold his business on Richmond because he was so afraid of Rail on Richmond, and that was in 2004. That was 21 years ago. And he sold his business, said, "I've got to get out of here. They're going to put Rail on Richmond, and it's going to ruin my business." And so he sold his business, and they still haven't put Rail on Richmond. He could have retired by now. There was one more, honestly, though. I have so much faith in the youth. I know they're carrying so much more and so differently, but they also seem more open-minded and kind and aware. So that's nice.
That is nice. Yes. And, we also were talking about Frank's topic, which was Governor Abbott has signed a new legislation about allowing Texas agencies to work remotely or flexible.
With the right oversight.
Within their
make sure they're getting their work done.
Company to make sure they're getting their work done. And we also received a text. Somebody sent in a text that says, "Work from home whenever and wherever possible will help save our environment. Less burnt fossil fuel emissions going to work and back home."
That's absolutely true.
That's right. And we also received another text from Andrew who said, "I love remote work. Even though I do not have that myself, the main drawback seems to be the lack of ability to transfer knowledge from older to younger workers. That could be solved by instituting a mentorship program between older 20, 30 plus year workers and younger or new workers, something to where a younger worker can contract someone who has the knowledge to help."
Yeah, you lose a lot of institutional knowledge, as they call it, when either older people retire or get laid off or have buyouts or whatever. And you certainly lose it if you're not working with these people every day. But that
face-to-face interaction is so important.
So obviously every job is different.
Right.
Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. Denise Ehrlich, who's Wine Goddess, Texas.
Hi, Wine Goddess.
That's a self-proclamation.
Love that.
I've worked from home since 2005. I love it, but I'm in sales and marketing. Rose, not every job suited to this. I get plenty of social time with colleagues. Of course you do. You're the Wine Goddess. Why wouldn't you?
Here, there, it says it's interesting the number of businesses that moved away from remote work once it was denounced. Appreciate the approach of researching before making changing just to fall in line. So again, you can join the conversation, 713-440-8870. You can call us or text us. You can also email us, talk@hellohouston.org.
Well, later in this hour, we're going to talk to Executive Director of the Houston Film Commission, Alfred Cervantes. He'll talk about the Texas film industry. That may be another plus for staying in Houston. Or Texas. They're getting a big boost from Senate Bill 22 and more, so we'll chat with him. In the meantime...
Yes, Houston ISD on Thursday released its compensation education plan for the 2025-2026 school year, which will use increased state funding to boost teacher pay. Raises will be determined by performance-based incentives instead of experience, sparking backlash from the district's largest teachers union. Pay increases for HISD teachers are possible due to the passage of House Bill 2 during the recent Texas legislative session, in which lawmakers decided about $8.5 billion in state funding for public education and raised the basic per-student allotment for schools across the state. While this additional state funding has allowed other large school districts in the Houston region, such as Katy ISD, Fort Bend ISD, and Cy-Fair ISD, to increase their teachers' salaries based on experience, HISD is doling out raises based on teachers' performance evaluations. Performance-based pay for teachers has been a divisive issue. Houston Federation of Teachers President Jackie Anderson, whose union represents thousands of teachers in the district, told Houston Public Media on Friday that the Federation would be exploring legal options. Is this fair evaluation for teacher raises, or should experience matter? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
I don't see why it can't be both. I mean, I get it, but it's this problem is merit versus longevity. And I get that just because you've been somewhere a long time, you shouldn't automatically get a 3 or 4 or 5% increase or whatever the cost of living is or however it's done. Mm-hmm. But longevity does count for something. I mean, you've agreed to do this job and you've stuck with it through thick and thin. Hopefully, you even have students that look back and even write to you or come to you and say, you know, you were my teacher in 3rd grade, 5th grade, 8th grade, high school. You made such an impact on my life, and I thank you for that. And you're only going to get that if you're there a long time, because I think you learn as you go and get different students every year, and you have to sort of say, you know, this is a better way of teaching, this is not. And then you have merit. So I don't know why you can't have longevity and merit. Why does it have to be just these teacher evaluations and that's it?
I agree in that experience holds so much importance, especially when we're looking at the industry and education. Older teachers or teachers that have more experience or have been in the education space for a long time know how to can really. Younger teachers can benefit from their experience. You know, one of my favorite teachers was much older, Miss Stevens at Sharp Elementary.
Mr. Stevens at Mountain Brook High School is one of mine. Isn't that funny? They're not
Ms.
related
Stevens,
to each other.
1st grade, I remember she told me, Celeste, my maiden, Diaz Granados, if you don't get paid to talk when you're older, I don't know what you're going to do.
That was a subtle hit to shut up in class, Celeste.
I was that kid that had their desk pulled all the way up to the teacher's desk every year in elementary school. Shocker.
You're that kid.
I know. But, you know, I do think that there is a place for merit-based pay as well as experience. And there are lots of facets to the teacher evaluation.
Well, there might be an argument that, look, the longer you've done this job, the better you're going to be at it, so the merit pay will come to you. As long as you're doing your job and continue to do it well, don't worry about how long you've been there.
Excellent point.
You'll get the merit just because you've done it so much.
Give us a call, 713-440-8870. We want to hear from you.
This is a totally different move here as far as the story is concerned. The United States Supreme Court on Friday upheld a Texas law requiring consumers to provide age verification in order to gain access to commercial websites that provide sexually explicit material. Mm-hmm. So basically, if you want to see porn, you're going to have to tell them who you are and how old you are.
You?
Exactly. Yep. It's the same way they do with if you want to buy wine online. You know.
That's right. If you go to an alcohol website or a website that promotes alcohol.
Yeah. Now, I don't know how they're going to prove that you are who you are. I don't know they're going to make you upload your driver's license to the porn site before you can go look at it. I don't know. Anyway, it's the first time the court has imposed requirements on adult consumers in order to protect minors from having such access. Free speech advocates argue that while the law's goal is to limit minors' access to online sexually explicit content, it is overly vague and imposes significant burdens on adults' access to constitutionally protected expression. Obviously, did make a very good argument. Lawyers for the Texas filing said that during arguments that the law's opponents have failed to show a single person whose rights have been, quote, chilled by it. So the Texas measure, enacted in 2023, was aimed at protecting kids under the age of 18 from exposure to sexually explicit material, commonly called porn. What are your thoughts? 713-440-8870. I don't think it's any different than when it was just pornography, like at video stores, I guess, or stores on the side of the highway that you would see. I'm sure that they required a driver's license to go into that store or to buy magazines at 7-Elevens or something. I mean, we have age verification for every adult part of our world. I don't know why this would be a shock to people.
Exactly. Give us a call, 713-440-8870. And we have been receiving some text, and we had somebody say about the teacher compensation here, there, says, agree with Frank, both. If there's a performance issue, should be addressed through existing protocols. If those protocols don't work, they should also be evaluated. And that's Kisha.
But not so fast. This is Jen in Clear Lake. Teacher pay in Texas is still about $10,000 less on average. Starting teacher pay is about $14,000 below average. Merit-based pay sounds great, but data entry pays more than a starting teacher pay in Texas. Hey, take a look. Read this next one.
We did receive another text that says, I'm a teacher in HISD, and they said very specifically that they're going to purposely have a certain number of teachers at each appraisal level so that costs stay down and salaries are kept so the evaluation system will inherently not be fair. And they've set it up that way on purpose. I was an exemplary teacher for years, actually every single year since I started teaching in 2012. And since the takeover, I've been labeled as proficient, which is a level 2. Because the way that the appraisal system is set up, it's not fairly judging teachers who are in fine arts. And those are from actual teachers that we are receiving these texts from.
Well, if it's not being done fairly, then it needs to go to
That's
court.
A problem.
And they need to figure it out.
That's a problem. Absolutely.
Hopefully they can, and we absolutely, hopefully some of this money that's been coming out of the legislature will go to these teacher salaries because they are paid far below the national level.
I sure hope so.
And
they do a lot more in today's age.
Nobody gets to where they are without a teacher.
That's right.
Not you.
Nope.
Not me, especially you, since
Ms.
you talk so
Stevens.
much in class.
I talk so much in class, Miss Stevens. You can ask my parents. It was always
everybody needs a teacher. That's
Celeste
the way
is
it
a
is.
social butterfly. She has too many comments. Okay, so again, 713-440-8870. We want to hear from you. Last week we were talking on Hello Houston about a major wedding.
An expensive one anyway. $55 million. Lord.
So Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez 3-day wedding extravaganza in Venice cost
$55 million.
But it estimated to have boosted the city's economy by more than $1.1 billion, according to Italy's tourism minister. Between hotel stays, shopping sprees, and fine dining, the wedding's A-list guest poured big bucks into the city of water and showcased its value as a tourism destination. For comparison, here's the economic impact other events had on the U.S. economy. Okay, the 2024 Super Bowl in Las Vegas was $1.1 billion. Beyonce's Renaissance Tour, $4.5 billion. And Taylor Swift's Eras Tour, $5 to $10 billion. Still, many Venetians pushed back on Bezos' fete, pointing to the wedding as a symbol of extreme income inequality. What are your thoughts about the Bezos wedding? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
Well, there's some people who are just richer than me, and if they want to spend their money on a $55 million wedding in Venice, then that's their money.
Yeah, I think my thoughts are you can't be just upset for people for being wealthy, just the way you can't be upset with people for just
I love
not
Amazon. I use it all the time.
And there are a lot of people that say that it bothered them that they support Amazon or that's where they go to buy so much of their things, and that they did not think this was appropriate for Jeff Bezos to put his wealth out there like the way they did.
Well, I don't know that the $55 million came from him. I mean, did he say to everybody,
from the
by the way, John, guess what I spent on my wedding? I'm not sure this is coming from Jeff as much as media reports, and maybe they're adding it up and they're saying, well, they called and said, how much would it be if I wanted to rent this place or I wanted to rent that venue, and how much is that caterer? Maybe somebody started to kind of add it up on their own and came up with $55 million, and Jeff's over there saying, you know what, it didn't even cost us $100,000.
Well, when I was reading about the actual economics of the wedding, they did say that the Bezos and Sanchez, wedding planners and their strategy around it was to go to some of the oldest and most local vendors. They wanted to make sure that everything was sourced locally. And so I think that they were trying to be eco-friendly. But again, 713-440-8870. These are our thoughts. We want to hear yours. And Vic from Southgate is on the line about teacher salaries. Vic, welcome to Hello Houston. What are your thoughts about teacher salaries?
Invest in education and teachers across the board. Cut other programs.
Cut other programs. And so you're saying when we're looking at teachers, can you elaborate on that just so we understand?
We need to invest in our kids and the future through our teachers. Motivate them to perform better and higher.
Well, yeah, no one disagrees with that.
Thank you.
Emily's also on the line from the Woodlands about the teacher salaries.
Thanks, Vic. Emily, what's on your mind?
Hi. Just wanted to add a comment that our schools have now become quite politicized. We're seeing in Conroe ISD, we've lost several of our highest administrators in our district because of the hostility of our school board towards teachers and administrators. So I think that adds an additional level complication of saying that merit should be the sole purpose of or the decision of making a raise or not.
So when you say hostility from the board, what can you define that a little more? What exactly has been going on?
Sure. We've seen school board members raise issues about a teacher who had a poster on her wall that said everyone belongs here, that showed different skin colors holding hands, saying that that was some sort of a political statement, for example.
Okay.
Our school board, if you watch our school board meetings, you can see the way that our school board used to talk to our superintendent.
Wow. Well, I've already talked to several teachers about this whole 10 Commandments on the wall, that the teachers apparently are going to have to provide themselves 16 by 20 10 Commandments on the wall of every classroom. And they're all saying, and I will put up the prayers from Islam and the prayers from Hinduism and the prayers from Buddhism and Jewish prayers and every kind of prayer. I guess the 10 Commandments technically from Moses, but every kind. I said, if we just put the golden rule up there, we'll be done with it. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
That's
and
right.
And don't bring guns to school, and you got it covered.
That's a big one.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Emily, for giving us a call from the Woodlands. Again, we want to hear from you, 713-440-8870. And coming up on Hello Houston, the executive director of the Houston Film Commission, Alfred Cervantes, will talk about the Texas film industry getting a major boost from Senate Bill 22 and more. This is News 88.7.
I'm Josh Adams, the new general manager of Houston Public Media, and we are here for one reason, you. I'm thrilled to lead this remarkable team dedicated to our mission of informing, educating, and inspiring everyone in the greater Houston area. And yes, these are challenging times, but together we'll meet them head on with bold ideas, honest reporting, and stories that matter. Houston Public Media is your public media. Together, let's make it incredible.
Help wanted?
You want to sort of think about a young college graduate like a capital investment. And so when businesses are feeling confident about investments overall, they tend to hire more college graduates. And when they're feeling less confident, they hire fewer.
I'm Kai Rizdal, the new grad job bust. Next time on Marketplace.
You can listen to Marketplace. It's coming up tonight at 6:30 on News 88.7.
I'm Asma Khalid. Though author Emily Itami no longer lives in Japan, she still sets her books there.
I miss it the way that I miss a person, so I really love to write about it because I want to be back there, I suppose, and write myself back into it.
Her latest novel, next time on Here and Now.
It's coming up today at 1 p.m. on News 88.7.
Houston Public Media is rooted in our community. We show up at school board meetings, city council votes, and neighborhood events.
That's how you stay informed about what's happening around you through deep local reporting that brings clarity and insight.
Your support powers this public service, so Greater Houston stays informed, connected, and safe.
Support local journalism right now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Now Now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Celestia Sherman and Frank Billingsley.
The Texas film industry is set to get a major boost now that Senate Bill 22 was signed into law by Governor Abbott. The bill will allocate $1.5 billion over the next decade to bolster the state's production incentive program. That's $300 million every 2 years, making it one of the most significant investments of its kind in the country. The goal? To make Texas more competitive in attracting film and television productions, and to keep more of that business and the jobs that come with it right here at home. So what could this mean for Houston's own film scene, from local crews and talent to businesses that benefit from production spending? Joining us now is Alfred Cervantes, the executive director of the Houston Film Commission, to talk about the opportunities this new funding brings and what it will take to turn this investment into jobs, stories, and screen rights right here in Houston. Alfred, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hello, Celeste and Frank. Thank you for having me.
Glad you're here.
So why don't you tell us already, are we seeing anything, and how long will it be till we start really seeing the impacts of this right here in Houston?
The law it became law very recently in June, and it will become effective September 1st of this year. And as you just mentioned, the new money allocation will be good for 2 years. So September 1st, 2025 through August 31st, 2027. And we are already working with projects that are looking at doing pre-production in anticipation of taking advantage of the new incentive monies in the fall.
So when we say $300 million, break that down for me a little bit. I guess that's $150 million a year, it sounds like. And so do you call a production company and say, hey, you come here, we'll pay for the studio, or we will pay for X number of employees' salaries? So how does this break down?
Sure. The state of Texas, of course, we make laws every other year. So when the law becomes effective, it's effective for 2 years. And so they have allocated $150 million per year for every 2 years for the next 10 years, which is a big deal. Now, once this is out into the community, of course, it's been written up in the trades as soon as it became law, because incentives, it's the name of the game these days in feature film production and narrative television production. So when the word is out there to studios and producers, once they realize that we now have a competitive incentive with other states that have had production going on for many years now, they will come to us and they will call us. We've already been in touch with some projects that are looking to develop things for our area, and of course the whole state. So the whole state is going to benefit from this new allocation of incentive funds.
So, okay, I'm still not quite getting it. They call you and they say, okay, you have $150 million and I want to make a movie. Can I have $2 million? Is that how it works?
How it works here in Texas, because we are structured differently than some of the other states that have aggressive incentive programs that operate on a transferable or resellable tax credit system. Texas does not have a state income tax, and which people love. We will never have a state income tax, right? Like some other states. So we have a rebate grant program where a producer, once you have a project, you go to the Texas Film Commission, you tell them how much money you're estimated to spend on your project in the state of Texas, and your spend can apply to cast salaries, crew salaries, of course, Texas-based vendors, anything you spend making your project. Again, it's a rebate grant system, so you make your film, and at the end of spending your money in Texas, making your motion picture, you turn in a set of accounting books. The Texas Film Commission will audit those books and then cut you a check months later once they have a more accurate number of what that project spent making their project in Texas. So it's a rebate system.
So like 10% or 20%, or the whole thing?
No, great question. It all depends on how much you are spending, a level of how much you're going to spend in the state. So the first tier is if you are spending between $250,000 and $1 million in the state of Texas making your film, you're eligible for a baseline of 5% back. If you're spending between $1 million and $1.5 million in the state of Texas making your film, you can ask for up to a baseline of 10% back. And the new thing with this this new bill is that if you spend 1.5 million or more in the state of Texas making your motion picture, you can ask for a baseline of 25% back of what you spend in the state making your project. Now that 25% number is the new number. That is the highest number we've had at a state level for our incentive program. And the 1.5 million spend, that has dropped from spending a minimum of 3.5 million. So there will be many more projects that are going to be able to take advantage of the 25% baseline incentive of what you spend in the state of Texas making your movie.
And so who benefits most from this? When you're looking at this, 25% return, or you're looking at, movie production is a grind. Screenwriters here in Texas, it's tough. It's not easy. A lot of this stuff gets held up. You're pitching to different executive producers and production houses. Who really is going to benefit of this? When you mentioned a little bit about salaries, but who decides like salary pay for, local productions on movies and production assistants? And when you're looking at the crew, not the big name actors or C or D level in Texas, but really, how is it going to benefit production workers here in the state?
Well, any incentive program, a motion picture incentive program, and again, there's many states that have them in the domestic United States, but any incentive program is a workforce development program or economic development program, because when these movies do spend their dollars, not only in Houston, around the state, it does bring economic benefit. And so ultimately, we want them to encourage them to hire Texas residents as crew, as cast, hire vendors, all these things. So ultimately, it's a bill that brings money to the state of Texas because, again, they're going to be spending this money here and hiring Texans for these jobs, and also Texas-based companies for their services. And it behooves a producer, the more you spend, again, just as I described the tiers, the more you spend in Texas, the more you can get back from the state in the way of that incentive program. On top of not only hiring Texans for good jobs in the film industry, it gives us an opportunity by having a competitive incentive. It gives us an opportunity to further show off our state and our city on the big screen and the small screen in many more ways, right? More movies, more TV shows, things like that. This is something we've been missing out on by not having a competitive incentive compared to our neighboring states and in some other states around the country.
And just for clarification, I know you said that this is something that would be ideal, right? If these productions were hiring locally. In the bill, does it state that this is a requirement, or is there any verbiage that will hold people and producers here in the state accountable to making sure they're hiring local talent?
There are some basic qualifications to take advantage of our state incentive program. And the new numbers are one of the basic ones is that when you are applying for the incentive, you have to agree to hire at least 35% of your crew as Texas residents. Okay. And the other basic qualification is that 60% of your production days must be achieved in the state of Texas. So those are two of the very baseline things. Now, because this bill is effective for over a decade, the first 2 years, you are required to hire 35% Texas crew or Texas residents. The next 2 years, it will be 40%. The next 2 years after that, it will be 45%. And then the next 2 years after that, it goes up by 5% until you reach a 50%, actually 60% local crew at the end of a decade. So they are encouraging producers to hire a certain percentage of Texas residents.
All right, we're talking to Alfred Cervantes, Executive Director of the Houston Film Commission. If you have a question, then let us know, 713-440-8870. We did have a YouTube comment, and I think you sort of answered it. This is from Cosme Garcia. Is the Houston Film Commission or local union going to do any outreach to bring back film workers that are living and working in other states?
Yeah, I certainly know crew people that used to live in Texas that have gone to markets that have sizable regular production and what's been really interesting the last 4 years is, and I call the pandemic kind of the great migration period, because one thing we learned from the pandemic is depending on what you do, you can live anywhere and work anywhere. So even in the last 3 years and 4 years now, we have a good number of new Houston residents or returning Houston residents that are film professionals. And so I'm excited about that, because they have expressed to me also that they want to work where they live, and that's in our Houston market. But yes, this will certainly bring attention back to Texas from other states that have some of our Texas crew working there. The whole goal is to, again, bring our qualified crew home and have them work where they're from or where they live.
Now, Alfred, we've had a couple of major film festivals come through. We've had a couple of people from the Happy Fest on Hello Houston. What is the film landscape right now, the movie landscape here in Houston? What does that look like, given that you're from the Houston Film Commission?
Yeah, I'm excited about the Houston film industry and the film market here. We have many film festivals throughout the year. Happy Fest has been around many years. Houston Cinema Arts Festival, there's a good number of them throughout the year that are listed on our website. But we have a vibrant film culture here. The River Oaks Theater has been hosting many film events for local independent filmmakers and premieres. And so I'm excited about our film industry. As I just mentioned, we have a number of new or returning film professionals in our market in the last 3 and 4 years that are going to be making projects here and already have made projects here. Right now, in the Houston independent film scene, we're kind of having a moment, because even in the last month and a half, there was an independent feature film filmed in Houston last summer that just won the top award at the Tribeca Film Festival. That movie is called Charlie Bird. There was just Charlie Bird. Is about an art therapist, but very unique film that won the top award at Tribeca Film Festival. Even like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, there's a film festival in Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard, called Dances with Films, and the opening night film was a Houston independent feature called Do No Harm that was filmed here 2 years ago. And the opening, if you're selected as the opening night film, you are a really good independent feature. So Do No Harm, opening night film of Dances with Films in the last 2 weeks. And then at the end of July, there's a independent feature that filmed in Houston 2 summers ago called Ick, I-C-K, and it's a creature feature comedy horror film, and it was directed by a new Houston area resident named Joseph Kahn, who is arguably the top music video director in the world and commercial director, who has a big fan base. And this is his latest feature film called Ick that will be in 800 cinemas nationwide, July 27th, 28th, and 29th.
Wow. This seems like such a win-win. So obviously, why did it take so long to this kind of influx from the state? And who do we have to thank for it?
Well, it takes a village, as you know. There are a number of organizations who led the charge. Texas Media Production Alliance was very integral. There's a group called Media for Texas that was very integral in bringing attention to our industry, because we have been behind for many years by not having a competitive incentive program. And this is really playing catch up to other states that have drawn production for many years. And so, again, it's going to help the whole state of Texas. We will certainly benefit for that in our area, because in the last 4 years, the feature films we've had here have been some parts of studio projects. Of course, a primary one that shot here for 2 seasons in the last 4 years was the Mo series on Netflix, the comedian Mo Amer, which has very high ratings on RottenTomatoes.com. But it's a wonderful series by a Houston comedian that is critically acclaimed. And so we've had that in the last 4 years. We had a week of Taylor Sheridan's TV show 1923 film in Galveston last summer for a week, and that brought attention to Galveston. But again, TXMPA, Media for Texas, and then all the industry people who called their representatives I testified at the Senate Finance Committee along with some stars who also did that. I went after Matthew McConaughey, and so nobody cared what I had to say. That's a joke, but it's a hard act to follow. But really,
sure.
the Texas actors and the Texas industry really stepped up to bring more and more attention to what we're up against, to show off our great state on the big screen and the small screen.
You know, and you mentioned Matthew McConaughey, and I immediately think Austin. How does Houston compare to like Austin and Dallas when it comes to film production and films that are coming out of our area?
Yeah, as it's no secret that Austin has been the film darling of Texas for a long, long time, and they have regular narrative TV production and feature films. But Houston is, we do have feature filmmaking going on here. It's maybe a little bit smaller in scale, but it's becoming a little bit more regular thing in the last 4 years. Each year we get away from the pandemic, we've actually had really good years. Last year was an above average year for film production around here as far as our estimates as economic benefit. And so each year we get away from the pandemic, it's been a little bit better and a little bit better. Of course, we are trying to get the word out more that Houston is a place for film and TV production as a place in our state compared to Austin. So we do not do any marketing in our city, of course. What we do is we spend our marketing dollars in Los Angeles, in New York, in Europe, places where sizable projects have come here in the past, and for them to consider us along with these other primary film and TV markets. I received a text from an agent in Los Angeles just a few weeks ago who said that Houston keeps popping up in his industry trade feeds online, and because we are doing more marketing there to get people to think about Houston more as a place to make film and TV.
And what do you do when you are talking in the film, landscape in that space? How do you sell Houston as a place for people to come and shoot their films here?
Sure. Houston is situated, as y'all know, in a 60-mile radius, you have all different topographical looks. So to the north, you have piney woods. To the northwest, you have rolling hills. Southwest, you have flat farmland. And then, of course, 45 miles due south is Galveston Island. So it's great to have all those different types of looks in a 60-mile radius. That's a draw, and that's a primary way we let people know that you can get all these different looks around Houston. Of course, in the past years, Houston has doubled on film for New York, Chicago, St. Louis. We've done Miami and Galveston. We've done Cuban Jungle near the Woodlands on a TV movie. So part of the job is being creative in photographing Houston in the way a director might need it for whatever story they're trying to tell. So a big part of what we do is showing off. We have a location database on our website. We have 1,800 locations in our location database and our private location database that we share with producers on a project-by-project basis to let them know what we have to offer. Of course, Houston, as the fourth largest city, we have the infrastructure, we have a great airport, we have the crew here now, we have everything you need, and it's very affordable. For the fourth largest city in the country, it's very affordable to do business here, and that's a primary thing as well.
Nice. Well, congratulations.
Yes, congrats. Alfred Cervantes is the executive director of the Houston Film Commission. Alfred, thanks for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you for having me.
You know, coming up, we'll discuss how one company is hoping to improve rural healthcare. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
Hi, I'm Dr. Karen Fox, Professor of Maternal Fetal Medicine at UTMB. I'm passionate about serving mothers and children all across our region. As both an educator and physician, I'm privileged to shape the next generation of healthcare professionals. I also support Houston Public Media's mission to educate, inform, and provide critical communications infrastructure for first responders. Join me in ensuring their continued impact by visiting houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
On the next Fresh Air, we talk with Jeffrey Seller, who played a key role as a producer of the Broadway musicals Rent, Hamilton, In the Heights, Avenue Q, and the revival of Sondheim's Sweeney Todd that starred Josh Groban. His new
You can hear it tonight. It's on at 8 p.m.
This week on This American Life.
I'm dead serious. I spent hours compiling a list
of a couple things that make us cry. So we're going to start with like sort of our first one.
We're doing this now?
Oh, yeah, we're doing this now.
Oh, wow.
Seth doesn't cry, but he wants to. So we set up a little experiment. That's this week.
You can hear it Wednesday night. It's on at 9 p.m.
Support comes from Children's Museum of Houston, presenting Faithful Friends, an exhibit exploring understanding and friendship, where kids discover that while faiths and beliefs may differ, kindness and friendship are universal. More at cmhouston.org. Join us for Hello Houston, weekdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., taking a deep dive into the stories that matter to Houstonians, keeping you informed, engaged, and entertained, with the generous support from our founding sponsor, Kathy Sanders.
And now back to Hello Houston. To get your comment in on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Celeste Diaz-Sherman and Frank Billingsley.
Thanks for joining us. Earlier, Frank and I were talking about the Bezos wedding.
Yeah.
And Newsweek did a comparison. And how much Jeff Bezos makes and what he paid out for his wedding compared to the average household. So Jeff Bezos' wedding is compared to a middle-class person buying a sheet cake and bottle of champagne.
Wow. Well, his money makes so much money every second. He'll could never spend all of it. That's for sure.
Well, call me up, Jeff. I'll help you spend it.
I'll help you spend it.
I know how to spend it.
Brian in Clear Lake does make a point. You can be upset about super wealthy people because nobody earns $1 billion. That money was earned by the workers that weren't paid fairly that Jeff Bezos took advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about then. Today, workers get paid about $17 an hour. That's the lowest at Amazon.
And Amazon has come under a lot of actual controversy around that.
Yeah.
Bezos' wedding, another person sent us a text that said Bezos' wedding is an issue because of FOMO. Very few can access the event, and we all get to just hear about it. Well, that's kind of accurate.
Well, talk about missing out. A lot of people miss out on proper health care. According to the American Hospital Association, there have been over 136 rural hospital closures since 2010, and nearly 70% of primary health care professional shortages are in rural or partially rural areas. In addition to that, only 10% of physicians in the United States practice in rural areas, despite 14% of the population being in these areas. So that's a big issue. But there are efforts to address it. We're joined now by Dr. Toby Hamilton, a board-certified emergency physician and CEO and founder of Hamilton HealthBox, a value-based primary care microclinic leader. Dr. Hamilton, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm glad
Thanks
you're
for
here.
having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here because tell us, we see the problem is there's not enough doctors, hospitals, rural people can really miss out on proper health care. So what are you and Hamilton HealthBox doing to help fix this?
Well, what we're doing is we're trying to redesign the model by which primary care is delivered. Today, as it sits, you and I, we go to the doctor and we get greeted at the front desk, and then we get walked out to a room and a nurse comes in and asks us a few questions and the doc makes his way in. That's the normal dynamic that almost everybody has. The issue that rural America has is that they lack frequently the labor, the expertise, and certainly physicians and providers. They just aren't practicing out in these communities. And they do that for multiple reasons. It's hard to make the economics work. If I go hang my shingle in Terlingwood, Texas, I'm going to be out of business in a few months. And so there has to be enough density of humans to make it functionally possible for you to make ends meet. There has to be an interest in going out to these communities. And these communities have to have the right payer mix. They have to have enough people. Even if they have enough people, those people themselves have to be able to pay some portion of the bills. And when you combine all of those factors, along with a lot of the regulatory stuff that's already here and on the way, it makes it a very, very difficult business model.
So what are you doing? So where do you come in?
So what we do is we take that doctor's office, as I spoke about first, we spoke about your experience and you going down the hall. Imagine if we took that room that you're in at the end of the hall, and we picked it up and we dropped it into Terlingwood, Texas, population 150. You're sitting in that room with the nurse. You're receiving the exact same care. I can draw blood, I can collect urine, I can give hugs. The difference is the doctor is sitting over here in Houston or San Antonio or some other place. Now, that same doctor is still assigned to that community so that you're familiar with somebody and it isn't just like a random visit every time. So there is a doctor that is assigned to that community. That community gets a local nurse or provider that's operating a lot of the digital technologies. They're so advanced now. The technologies are coming so fast. And right here in Houston is the biggest healthcare specific innovation center in the country. I am seeing 50 to 100 cool ideas coming through here every single year, and we're getting to use those ideas and put them into Terra Texas. And I'll give an example. So yeah, you got the doc by the TV, but doc says to nurse, hey, normally I pick up the stethoscope or the otoscope and I stick it in your ear or on your chest and listen. The difference is I just ask my nurse to do it. And I can hear those same sounds. I can see those same things through the computer now because the technologies have advanced so much. There are every single day, they are adding more capabilities and more and more and more and more. And what's happening now is that if we can put those technologies into these communities, we have data that shows that we can give them the same level of care as what you or I are getting, even though they've got a fraction of the resources available to them. And so what we're doing is we're using technology and a different style of delivering care to get it out into communities further and further out.
What about value-based? You guys say y'all are a value-based primary care micro clinic. Explain to us value-based.
Well, value-based can have a bunch of different meanings. So we are focused on rural America, but we do still do, for example, businesses. So today we're servicing 10 different companies here in Houston. And what we do for them is we take that same exact model that I just described and we put that nurse at the job site or maybe in a car and they're hitting multiple job sites throughout the day. But it's still the same doctors beaming in, providing the same level of service. The same capabilities to draw blood, collect urine, to monitor your illness, to check on your diabetes, to be available for you as needed. And those companies that we're working with, we have an enormous amount of data now to show that not only do we pay for my services, we're keeping your employees out of the hospital, or less days in the ER, less visits to the ER, less nights in the hospital, and that's resulting in economic benefit for those companies. So when we say value-based care in that context, what I'm really saying is, hey, when we go in, we are not only providing the lowest cost operations that you can effectively provide for someone, but we're also coming out with values that are equivalent, equal, if not superior to what other suburbanites and Houstonites are getting. We're just doing it a lot cheaper, a lot less expensive, and a little more focused. And that's what value in this sense is.
It's a little like Teladoc, except you go one step more because you have a nurse on hand to actually hook that patient up to whatever they need to be. So the doctor really has a more hands-on ability for the
That's
diagnosis.
right. The limitation of Teladoc, number one, by the way,
Hold on one second. I want to know, what is the economic benefit, though, for rural areas going to this?
For rural areas?
Yes. What is the economic of somebody who is out there, who might be of lower income, who is already living in a healthcare desert? What is the economic benefit of Hamilton Health Box?
Well, first step is that we're there. We exist where nothing previously does exist. So I'm frequently your option. So for these communities, that in itself is the benefit. But when we're able to bring quality care that is equivalent or superior to what everybody else is getting, well, then now we've got something that is really engaging that community in their long-term health and well-being. So the benefit is they're getting care, and B, we're able to do it with usually Medicaid and Medicare, which is what a lot of these communities are full of. If you guys look around Houston now, there are no doctors. We don't know people that accept Medicaid for the most part. The people that accept Medicaid generally are entities that are subsidized by the government to some extent or another.
Speaking of which,
that's what you have.
I noticed in the Trump Big Beautiful Bill, there is a $23 billion fund to help states support rural healthcare providers. So what you're doing is obviously being supported by the government in a big way.
That's correct. Well, that's been going on for forever. And if let me say, these are razor's edge margins. I think there's probably not a provider in rural America today, subsidized or not, that isn't frankly completely panicked by the cuts that are coming. The margins on primary care businesses that are like mine are very, very small. Most people in this line of business are doing it not to get wealthy, because that's essentially impossible. They're doing it because they want to make a difference in those communities and build a business that is sustainable long-term in those communities.
So will you be affected?
That's what we're looking at.
Will you be affected by the big, beautiful bill?
Sure, you betcha. I think as I said, there's not, you couldn't put a rural care provider on this show right now that would say to you, oh my God, when you whack my patient population base by 15% of those that are able to pay, well, you know what my margin is on this business? Yeah. 10%, that's it. It's gone.
Well, Dr. Toby Hamilton, we'll have to have you back on to chat with us more about this, because there's a lot to talk about. Dr. Toby Hamilton is a board-certified emergency physician and CEO and founder of Hamilton Healthbox. Dr. Hamilton, thanks for joining us on Hello Houston.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
And that brings us to the end of our show. We want to thank you for listening to Hello Houston. We'll be back tomorrow with more conversations. This is News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altide, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Join us for Hello Houston, weekdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., taking a deep dive into the stories that matter to Houstonians, keeping you informed, engaged, and entertained, with the generous support from our founding sponsor, John Bradshaw.
KUHF Houston.
Funding for Here and Now comes from MathWorks, creator of MATLAB